Chapter 1. The Arrival of the Stranger. A figure, cloaked in shadows, stepped onto the midnight train, his presence unnoticed by the bustling travelers. This man, with his piercing eyes and a strange, almost unnatural stillness, was no ordinary passenger. He was the one everyone would forget, but the one whose actions would later change the course of destiny. His name was Alexander Voss, and he was carrying with him an object that could unravel the very fabric of the secretive world he had spent his life trying to control. As the train clattered on its way through the night, the passengers remained blissfully unaware of the danger that was heading their way. Chapter 2. The Meeting at the Secret Society. At a hidden manor, far away from the public eye, an ancient and exclusive society known as the Onyx Circle gathered in secrecy. Members of this society, with their wealth, power, and influence, had one mission: to obtain the obsidian diamond, a legendary gemstone with powers no one fully understood, but all feared it. Inside this dimly lit room, a meeting of critical importance was unfolding. The society's leader, Lucian Darmond, a man with a past as mysterious as the diamond itself, stood in front of the others. "The diamond is within reach," he announced coldly. "Our messenger, Voss, is on his way with the key to our future, but he must not fail." As the adherers nodded in agreement, an air of unease settled over the room. No one had ever truly seen the diamond, and the legends that surrounded it were enough to unsettle even the bravest. Chapter 3. The Chase Begins. Back at the train station, Voss disembarked and made his way towards a dark alley where he was to meet his contact. He was a man of few words, but had learned the art of staying one step ahead of those who sought to destroy him. Little did he know, he was being followed. Two figures in the shadows, silent and deadly, were closing in on him. Voss felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise as he heard footsteps approaching. He quickened his pace, the precious cargo wrapped in layers of cloth hidden beneath his coat. The obsidian diamond was no ordinary stone. It held the power to change the world, and now it was in Voss's hands. As he turned a corner, he found himself face to face with the leader of those who sought the diamond, a woman whose beauty was matched only by the ruthlessness in her eyes. Her name was Isabelle Moreau, and she had once been an ally of Voss, but now she was his enemy. Chapter 4. The Betrayal. Voss knew that in their line of work, there was little room for trust. Isabelle had turned against him years ago, and now she was here, hunting him down. "You can't run forever, Voss," she said, her voice a mixture of mockery and seduction. "The diamond will be mine." In that moment, Voss knew the truth: he had been betrayed. Isabelle was not the only one after the obsidian diamond. The Onyx Circle had been tracking him for months, and now the time had come for the final confrontation. Chapter 5. The Heart of the Mystery. The chase took them through the streets of Paris, from the seedy underbelly of the city to the luxurious mansions on the hills. But the real mystery lay in the origins of the obsidian diamond itself. It was said to be more than just a gem. It was a key to an ancient power, capable of controlling minds and bending the will of nations. Voss's only hope was to reach the ancient temple hidden beneath the city, where the diamond's true power could either be harnessed or destroyed. But Isabel was closing in, and the onyx circle had their own plans for the stone. What Voss didn't know was that he was playing a dangerous game where the stakes were much higher than he could imagine. Chapter 6. The Final Confrontation. As Voss and Isabel faced each other in the hidden temple beneath Paris, the obsidian diamond pulsed with an otherworldly glow. The air was thick with tension, and the past began to unravel before them. Who could be trusted? Who had truly betrayed whom? The final battle was not one of weapons, but of minds, wills, and dark secrets. And as the truth came to light, the very foundation of the onyx circle was shaken to its core. Chapter 7. The Ritual of Power. Section 1. The Unveiling of Secrets. Voss stood motionless as Isabel slowly circled him, her eyes locked on the obsidian diamond. The dim light of the underground temple flickered as the air seemed to grow heavier, almost suffocating. The walls were adorned with ancient symbols, worn down by time, but still pulsing with an eerie energy. "You don't understand, do you?" Isabel said, her voice soft but filled with disdain. "The diamond isn't just a tool of power, it's a key." She paused, leaning closer, her breath cold against Voss's cheek. "It unlocks something far darker, something buried for centuries, waiting for the right person to claim it." Voss clenched his jaw, the weight of her words sinking in. For years, he'd believed that the diamond was simply an object of immense wealth and influence. But now, it was clear it was more than just a stone. It was a catalyst, an artifact capable of rewriting the future. "You think you can control it? You're nothing more than a puppet, just like the rest of them," Isabel continued, her eyes flashing with something dangerous. Voss gripped the diamond tightly in his hand. "You can have all the power in the world, Isabel, but you can never control this." He gestured to the pulsing gem between them. The room seemed to hum with energy as the diamond reacted to his words, its glow intensifying. In that moment, Voss realized that the obsidian diamond was alive, responding not to greed or ambition, but to intent, to the pure, unfiltered desires of those who wielded it. Section 2. The Sacrifice. As Isabel took a step closer, her face softening with an almost unreadable expression, Voss prepared himself for the inevitable. He knew that she would stop at nothing to claim the diamond. The onyx circle had come too far to let him escape with it now. "We don't need to fight, Voss. We can share the power. You and I," Isabel said, her voice suddenly seductive. "Together, we could reshape the world. No more manipulation. No more lies. Just us. And everything we ever wanted." Voss shook his head slowly. "You don't get it. Power isn't something you share. It's something that devours you whole." He could see it in her eyes, that fleeting moment of doubt. Perhaps she hadn't fully realized the darkness that awaited her. But there was no time for hesitation. The diamond pulsed again, brighter now, as if it was feeding on their emotions. And in that moment, Voss made a decision. With a sudden movement, he thrust the diamond into the altar's stone pedestal, triggering the ancient mechanism embedded in the temple floor. The diamond slid into place, and the ground trembled beneath them. A deafening roar filled the air as the temple's walls began to crack and shift. Isabel cried out, but it was too late. The ritual had begun. Section 3. The Awakening. The world seemed to shift around them, and the power emanating from the obsidian diamond began to fill the room. Time felt warped, like the very fabric of reality was being twisted. The ancient symbols on the walls came to life, glowing with an unnatural light. In the center of it all, the diamond released a pulse of raw energy that reverberated through the temple, shaking the earth itself. Voss fell to his knees, the force of the energy almost too much to bear. But in his mind, a vision began to take shape. He saw images of cities crumbling, rulers falling, and entire civilizations descending into chaos. And then he saw the face of the one pulling the strings, the true mastermind behind the Onyx Circle. It was Lucien d'Armand, the leader of the Onyx Circle. His face appeared before Voss, as if summoned by the diamond itself. Fool. Lucien's voice echoed in Voss's mind. You think you can stop this? You were never meant to control the diamond. You were always just a pawn, a tool to bring about the final awakening. You should have known better than to trust in something so fickle as power. Voss tried to fight the overwhelming flood of visions and sounds, but the diamond's grip was too strong. He had triggered the ritual, the awakening of something far older than the Onyx Circle. The obsidian diamond was not a mere gemstone. It was the key to an ancient force, one that had been dormant for centuries, waiting for the right moment to resurface. As the vision faded, Voss saw Isabel, standing now in the center of the temple, her hands trembling. She had been consumed by the power of the diamond. Her once charming face had turned pale, her eyes wide with horror, as the realization hit her she had unlocked something she was never meant to control. And then the temple began to collapse. Section 4. The Last Stand. As the ground shook violently, Voss scrambled to his feet, barely able to stand against the chaos around him. The walls crumbled, and a bright, blinding light filled the room. Isabel's screams echoed through the chaos, but Voss had no time to save her. He could see the aftermath of the ritual unfolding, the destruction of the circle, and the loss of control that even the most powerful had once held. The obsidian diamond began to pulse faster, its energy growing uncontrollably. It was becoming clear that the diamond was never meant to be wielded by mere mortals. It was a force beyond comprehension, too ancient and dangerous for anyone to control. With no other choice, Voss made his way to the altar and began to pull at the diamond. His hands shook as he tried to remove it from the pedestal, but the energy surrounding it was too strong. He could feel it pulling at him, trying to keep him there, trapped in the same endless cycle that had consumed so many before him. But then, a sudden realization dawned on him. The diamond didn't want to be controlled. It wanted to be free. Without hesitation, Voss hurled the diamond into the collapsing ruins of the temple. As it fell, the room filled with a blinding light, and then silence. Chapter 8. The Legacy of the Diamond. Section 1. The Aftermath. When Voss awoke, the world had changed. The temple was in ruins, the obsidian diamond lost to the depths below, its power extinguished. Isabel was nowhere to be found, and the remnants of the Onyx Circle had been scattered like dust in the wind. But Voss knew one thing for certain: the world was no longer the same. The diamond's power, once thought to be a tool for domination, had unleashed something far greater than anyone could have imagined. Section 2. A World Reborn, Voss stood alone, surrounded by the destruction. But as the dust settled, he realized that it was not the end, but the beginning. The obsidian diamond had been more than just a tool. It had been a catalyst for change. The secrets it held had been released into the world, altering the course of history forever. Voss, now free from the shackles of the circle, knew that the fight was far from over. New powers would rise from the ashes of the old world. But this time, he would be ready. And as he walked away from the ruins of the temple, he glanced at the horizon, where the first light of dawn began to break through the clouds. The world would never be the same, and neither would he. Chapter 9. The Hidden Threat, Section 1. The Silent Storm. Months passed since the fall of the onyx circle and the disappearance of the obsidian diamond. The world seemed to return to normal, but a storm was brewing in the background, one that no one could see. As governments rebuilt, corporations reorganized, and the wealthy continued to secure their power, a hidden force was quietly at work, gathering strength. In a remote, undisclosed location, a group of men and women sat in a darkened room, their faces shadowed and their voices low. They were the remnants of the circle, but they were more than just survivors. They had learned from the mistakes of their predecessors. They were the architects of the next phase, and this time, they were not going to rely on the diamond. Voss may have destroyed the temple, a man said, his voice smooth and cold, but he has no idea what he's unleashed. The obsidian diamond was only a catalyst, a tool to awaken the hidden order beneath our feet. The true power is still out there. The others around this table nodded in agreement, but one figure, a woman in a dark cloak, leaned forward. "We have to find him," she said, her voice chillingly calm. Voss may have taken the diamond, but he has something far more dangerous, the knowledge of what it can do. We cannot allow that to spread. Section 2. The search begins. Meanwhile, Voss, now a man with no clear purpose, walked through the streets of Paris. Though the city had moved on, he had not. The obsidian diamond had consumed him, and though it was no longer in his hands, the events that had unfolded still haunted him. The power he had witnessed was unlike anything he could have imagined, and the responsibility of knowing its secrets weighed heavily on him. He knew, however, that the fight wasn't over. Somewhere, someone was still hunting the diamond, and if they had learned from the mistakes of the circle, they would be far more dangerous. As Voss walked along the Seine, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a man with sharp features and a stern expression. His eyes filled with purpose. He had been tracking Voss for days, learning his routines and movements. This man, unlike those who had hunted the obsidian diamond for power, was after something far more specific knowledge. "Voss," the man said in a low voice, "I know what you've seen, and I know you're the key to stopping what's coming." Voss's hand instinctively moved toward the gun hidden under his coat, but he quickly relaxed when the man held up his hands. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to warn you." Section 3. The New Order. The man introduced himself as Lucien Moreau, a former intelligence officer whose family had been closely tied to the affairs of the world's wealthiest and most influential people. But his mission was not to protect them. Instead, he had spent years investigating the remnants of the ancient power structures that the Circle had tried to control. He had tracked the obsidian diamond's journey, knowing full well that it was only a piece of a much larger puzzle. "You've seen what the circle was capable of," Lucian said, as they walked through the city streets. "But the real danger is not just the diamond. It's the people who want to claim its legacy. There are those who will stop at nothing to unlock its secrets and reshape the world." And Voss stopped walking and turned to face Lucian. "And what do you want me to do? The diamond is gone. I'm not the hero of this story. I didn't even control the damn thing." Lucian's eyes hardened. "You're wrong. You don't control it, but you know what it can do. The people I'm working with need that knowledge. The diamond's power is far from gone. If it's not used in the right way, the world will suffer in ways you can't even imagine." Section 4. The Race Against Time. Lucien handed Voss a small device, a tracking system linked to global communications. It had been developed by a secret group that had remained hidden from the world's governments. This group, unlike the Onyx Circle, had no desire for fame or fortune. They wanted to preserve the balance of power in the world. But they knew the dangers that lay in the wrong hands. "There are other groups out there, Voss," Lucien said. "Groups who believe the diamond's power should be used to dominate. Some believe it should be destroyed, while others believe it must be wielded to create a new world order. We need to stop them before it's too late." Voss hesitated. "And why should I trust you? After everything I've seen, after everything I've lost, why would I trust anyone?" Lucien's gaze softened. "Because we both know the truth. There's only one person who can stop this, and that person is you." Voss's mind raced. He knew that Lucien was right, but he had also seen the destruction caused by people who thought they could control the diamond. The power was too great, and no one was truly safe. Chapter 10. The Final Game Section. 1. Unmasking the True Enemy. The days that followed were filled with urgency. Lucien and Voss traveled across Europe, gathering information and trying to locate those who had been searching for the diamond. The deeper they dug, the more they realized that the stakes had grown beyond just the diamond. This was about control of the world itself. Their investigation led them to a powerful and mysterious figure, someone known only as the Black Bishop. This figure had been quietly manipulating global events for years, and it was said that he was the true leader of a secret cabal that had once been part of the Onyx Circle. The Black Bishop was no ordinary man. His influence spanned continents, and his reach was vast. He had managed to remain hidden from everyone, including the most powerful governments and organizations. His true identity was unknown, but his plans were clear. He sought to use the power of the obsidian diamond to achieve a level of control that no one had ever dreamed of. Section 2. The Final Confrontation. Lucien and Voss finally tracked down the location where the Black Bishop was believed to be hiding in an ancient fortress high in the mountains of Eastern Europe. The fortress had been abandoned for centuries, but now it was the base of operations for the secret cabal. Voss and Lucien made their way through the cold, snow-covered mountains, knowing that once they entered the fortress, there would be no turning back. Inside the fortress, the Black Bishop waited for them. His eyes glowed with a cold intensity as he stood in front of a large, ornate mirror, the obsidian diamond resting on a pedestal beside him. "You've come to stop me, Voss," the Black Bishop said. his voice calm but full of malice. But you're too late. The diamond's power will be mine, and when I am done, the world will bow to me. Voss stepped forward, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. The diamond's power is too great for anyone to control, he said, his voice steady. It's not meant for mortals like us. The Black Bishop smiled, a sinister expression crossing his face. That's where you're wrong. Power is about control, and I will control everything. Section 3. The Destruction of Power. The final battle between Voss and the Black Bishop was not one of strength, but of will. The two men clashed in a battle of wits, each trying to outsmart the other. But as the diamond pulsed with energy, the true battle was not between them. It was against the forces of fate and destiny. In the end, Voss realized that the only way to stop the Black Bishop was to destroy the diamond once and for all. With one final act of defiance, he shattered the gem, releasing its energy in a burst of light so powerful that it could be felt across the world. Chapter 11. The Ripple Effect, Section 1. The Aftershocks. The world, once on the brink of change, had started to settle. The obsidian diamond had been destroyed, and with it, the immense power that the onyx circle, the Black Bishop, and countless others had sought to control. The news of the diamond's destruction spread like wildfire, but no one fully understood the extent of what had just occurred. Some believed the stone was simply another myth, another ancient artifact, while others knew the truth. The diamond was no ordinary relic, but a weapon of unimaginable force. For Voss, the aftermath felt like both a victory and a loss. He had destroyed the diamond, stopped the Black Bishop, and brought down a network that had quietly controlled the world's power for centuries. Yet, as he walked the streets of Paris once more, the weight of his decision weighed heavily on him. The truth was, there was always another shadow, always another conspiracy. And while the diamond was gone, the power that it had symbolized still lingered in the undercurrents of society. Voss knew that the battle wasn't truly over. He had been part of a cycle, one that had only just begun to unravel. And while he had won this round, the war for control of the world was far from finished. Section 2. Unseen Forces. Weeks passed, and Voss kept a low profile, traveling through Europe and trying to piece together what his life had become. The fight for the diamond had changed him. The man he had been before the assassin, the thief, the lone wolf was no longer the same. He had glimpsed the true face of power, and it had left an indelible mark on his soul. But it wasn't long before he felt the call of the shadows again. No sooner had he returned to Paris when a mysterious figure appeared at his doorstep. A woman, draped in a dark coat, her face obscured by a veil. She carried with her a message that would change everything. "Voss," she said in a low voice, "the diamond may be gone, but its legacy remains. There are those who would stop at nothing to claim what you destroyed. The circle is not the only game in town. There are forces out there that you cannot even imagine, and they are already coming for you." Voss knew that this was just the beginning. Chapter 12. The Return of the Mastermind, Section 1. A New Power. The woman, who identified herself as Helena, was an operative of a secret international organization, one that had watched the rise of the Onyx Circle and had always stayed hidden, operating from the shadows. She explained that while Voss had destroyed the diamond, it had only fueled the ambitions of other, more powerful entities who now sought to use the information from the diamond's destruction to their own advantage. The Black Bishop was just one player, Helena told Voss. The true mastermind is someone far more dangerous, someone who has been orchestrating events for decades, pulling strings from the very top of global power. Voss felt his stomach tighten. Who, he asked, his voice betraying no emotion. His name is Victor Graves. She said, he is the leader of a network known as the Iron Hand. Unlike the Onyx Circle, which crumbled with the diamond's loss, the Iron Hand operates in silence, weaving its influence through governments, corporations, and military leaders across the world. Their ultimate goal is simple world domination through total economic control and technological manipulation. Section 2. The Gathering Storm. Voss wasn't sure whether to trust Helena, but the urgency in her voice was impossible to ignore. She showed him a series of documents files detailing the Iron Hand's operations. What struck him most was the sheer scale of it. They weren't just manipulating stock markets or controlling resources. They were developing new technologies that could turn the tide of war, even control entire nations through digital and economic warfare. This is bigger than you realize, Helena continued. Victor Graves has the resources, the connections, and the ambition to control the world, and he's already laying the groundwork. What you did by destroying the diamond, it wasn't a victory, Voss. It was a temporary setback. Graves has been planning for this. You're now in his sights, and you're not alone. Section 3. The Alliance reluctantly. Voss agreed to join forces with Helena. He knew that no matter how much he had tried to distance himself from the world of shadows and power, it was inescapable. The forces at play were too large, and the risk of leaving it unchecked was too great. Together, they tracked down the remnants of the Iron Hand's operatives, hoping to glean any critical information about Victor Graves and his plans. The more they uncovered, the darker the world became. It wasn't just about control anymore. Graves sought to reshape the very fabric of human society, using technology and advanced weaponry to eliminate any opposition to his rule. The deeper they dug, the more they realized that there was no one they could trust. The Iron Hand's network ran so deep that even the highest levels of government were compromised. It became clear that the only way to stop Graves was to dismantle his entire operation from the inside out. But doing so would mean going up against an enemy unlike any Voss had ever faced. Chapter 13. The Last Betrayal, Section 1. The Wilhelms Voss and Helena's investigation eventually led them to a city in Eastern Europe, a place where Graves was rumored to be gathering his final pieces, a secret weapons facility hidden beneath an ancient fortress. As they made their way into the heart of the operation, it became clear that they were being watched. Every move they made was anticipated, and every lead they followed seemed to be a trap. Voss had a gut feeling that someone close to them was feeding information to Graves. Helena, who had once been a trusted ally, had become increasingly secretive. It wasn't long before Voss discovered the truth. Helena was not who she appeared to be. She had been working for Graves all along. Section 2. The betrayal unfolds. In a confrontation that took place within the darkened halls of the fortress, Helena revealed her true allegiance. "I've been working for Graves from the start," she admitted, her voice cold. "I was never here to stop him. I was here to make sure you got to this point, to ensure the obsidian diamond secrets didn't stay buried." Voss, shaken but resolute, stepped back, preparing himself for the inevitable fight. "You used me." Helena's eyes flickered with something regret. Or was it triumph? "I never thought you'd get this far, Voss. But now, you've unlocked the final phase. With your help, Graves will rise, and you will be his greatest ally." Section 3. The Final Stand. The fortress crumbled around them as Voss and Helena fought. But Voss wasn't just fighting for his life now. He was fighting for the world's future. Every strike, every move, was charged with the knowledge that Graves's reign could mean the end of humanity as it was known. With one final, desperate move, Voss took down Helena, using the very tactics she had once taught him. But as her body hit the cold stone floor, the realization hit him he had not destroyed the enemy. He had merely uncovered the truth. Victor Graves was waiting. Chapter 14. The Legacy of Shadows, Section 1. The Final Moment. The last confrontation took place in the heart of the Iron Hand stronghold. As Voss faced Graves, the weight of the entire world seemed to hang in the balance. Graves, with his cold eyes and supreme confidence, was not the man Voss had imagined. He was worse. He was an embodiment of the system that sought to control everything, to erase all freedom. "You can't win, Voss," Graves said, his voice tinged with arrogance. "This world was never meant to be free. It was always meant to be controlled." Voss's eyes hardened. "And that's where you're wrong." With one final strike, Voss ended the reign of the Iron Hand. The facility collapsed into rubble, and the power that had once threatened the world was no more. But as Voss walked away from the ruins, he knew that this victory had come at a heavy cost. Chapter 15. The Echo of Power, Section 1. The Cost of Victory. Voss stood at the edge of the crumbling fortress, the wreckage of the Iron Hand's operations scattered in the distance. The cold wind whipped across the mountainside, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke and dust. The battle was over. And yet, in the quiet aftermath, he felt no sense of peace. The silence was deafening, the weight of the destruction hanging heavy in the air. Victor Graves was dead, and the Iron Hand had fallen. But Voss knew that the war for control was far from over. He had seen too much, understood too much, to believe that the world would simply go back to normal. He had lost much in this fight: trust, allies, and parts of himself he could never reclaim. Helena's betrayal still stung. She had been his closest ally, and in the end, she had been another pawn in a much bigger game. The world had been reshaped by the events set into motion by the obsidian diamond. And now, even the dust had settled. Voss knew one thing: there would always be someone, somewhere, trying to seize that power. It was only a matter of time before the next shadow emerged. Section 2. The Unexpected Visitor. A week later, Voss returned to Paris, exhausted and searching for a sense of normalcy that seemed out of reach. He had hoped that the destruction of the Iron Hand would allow him some respite. but there was an emptiness that lingered, an unresolved tension that gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was still out there, watching him. His apartment was quiet, but his mind was far from peaceful. He sat at the window, looking out over the city. When he heard a knock at the door, his first instinct was to ignore it. He had nothing left to give, no more battles to fight. But the knock came again, more insistent this time. Reluctantly, Voss rose and opened the door. Standing in front of him was a figure he hadn't seen in years, a man with sharp eyes and a familiar face. It was Lucien Moreau. Voss narrowed his eyes, taking in the sight of the man. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice flat. Lucien looked past him, into the apartment, as if searching for something. "I had a feeling you'd be here. There's more to this than you think. Voss, the iron hand may be gone, but it's just the surface of something far darker." Voss stepped aside, allowing Lucien to enter. "You're telling me this now?" he asked, closing the door behind him. "After everything that's happened, what more could there be?" Lucien paused before speaking, his expression serious. "The power, you destroyed it, wasn't just about control. It was about something far deeper. Graves wasn't the mastermind. He was merely a figurehead, a placeholder for something older, something much more dangerous." Voss's pulse quickened as he listened to Lucien's words. He had thought the diamond's destruction had ended it all. He had thought that by ending the iron hand, he had severed the last link to the world of power and control. But now, it seemed there was still something much larger at play. Section 3. The Hidden War. Lucien sat down across from Voss, his eyes locked with the other man's. "What you destroyed was a key, yes, but not the only key. Graves had been working for someone else, someone who has been orchestrating events in the shadows for centuries. Their goal isn't just power, it's the ultimate control over humanity itself." Voss leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Who?" Lucien hesitated before answering. "The Order of the Midnight Throne." Voss's mind raced. "I've never heard of them." "You wouldn't have. They operate from the shadows, quietly controlling world governments, financial systems, and even the media. They were responsible for the rise of the Onyx Circle, for the creation of the Iron Hand. They've been playing a much larger game than Graves ever realized." The revelation hit Voss like a wave. The Order of the Midnight Throne, a group so secretive, so powerful, that no one had ever even suspected their existence. They had been behind everything: the manipulation, the chaos, the hunger for control. "So what now?" Voss asked, his voice tight with anger. "You want me to hunt down this new enemy?" Lucien's gaze darkened. "No. Voss, you're part of this now. You've seen their methods. You've seen how they work. You're the only one who can stop them." Section 4. A Dangerous Alliance. Voss knew Lucien was right. He had already been drawn into this world whether he liked it or not. He had destroyed the Iron Hand. But there were still powerful forces at work, and the battle was far from over. "Tell me what you need," Voss said, finally accepting the inevitable. Lucien smiled, but there was little warmth in it. "I need your help to uncover the Order's true plans. They're still out there, still gathering strength. We need to expose them before they can complete what they've started. Voss nodded slowly. And how do we do that? Lucien pulled out a small device, a sleek tablet, and placed it on the table between them. This contains everything we need to track them. The key players, their operations, and the connections they've made over the years. But we can't do this alone. We'll need to go underground. Voss, we'll need to infiltrate their ranks and take them down from within. The weight of what lay ahead was clear. This was no longer about taking down a single group or individual. This was a war for the soul of the world itself. Chapter 16. The Echo of Shadows. Section 1. The First Move. Voss and Lucien spent the next few weeks preparing for their mission. They knew the stakes the Order was watching, always waiting, and their plans were unfolding in ways that neither Voss nor Lucien fully understood. They needed to move quickly, but they also needed to be careful. Every step they took would be monitored. Every decision would be crucial. They tracked the Order's activities across the globe, following the trail of money, power, and influence. What they found was staggering, an intricate web of control that reached into every facet of society. The Order had infiltrated governments, corporations, and organizations, quietly shaping the world from the shadows. Lucien was certain that if they didn't act quickly, the Order would soon have everything in their grasp. Section 2. The Gathering Storm. As they dug deeper, Voss began to uncover a chilling pattern. The Order was planning something catastrophic, something that would give them the power to bend the entire world to their will. It was a project unlike anything they had seen before, and it was close to completion. "We need to stop them," Lucien said, his voice filled with urgency. "Before it's too late." Voss, staring at the data before him, felt the gravity of the situation. The power the Order had amassed was unlike anything they had faced before. But there was one thing: they didn't have the obsidian diamond. And as long as they could keep it buried, the Order would not have the key to unlock their ultimate plan. Section 3. The Final Move. Voss and Lucien made their way to the heart of the Order's operation. Infiltrating their headquarters was dangerous, but they had no choice. They knew that the key to stopping the Order lay within its walls. As they entered the darkened chambers of the Order, a chilling voice echoed through the hall. "You were always going to be a part of this." "Voss?" said a figure in the shadows. It was Victor Graves, or rather, what was left of him. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. "You never understood. The obsidian diamond was just the beginning. The true power lies in what you're about to witness." And with that, the final battle for control began. Chapter 17. The Heart of Darkness. Section 1. The Revelation. Voss and Lucien barely had time to process what had just transpired. The world they had known was changing, and everything they had fought for was now at risk. The final showdown with the remnants of the Iron Hand had revealed an even darker truth. The Order of the Midnight Throne was far more powerful and insidious than they had ever imagined. The underground lair they found themselves in was not just a hideout, but a fortress. Every wall lined with ancient relics, advanced technology, and symbols that seemed to pulse with an energy all their own. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of history, the history of an order that had shaped civilizations, played with kings, and manipulated the fate of nations for centuries, it was a place where every secret, every power, was stored for the day it would be used to reshape the world. Voss stood motionless in the center of the chamber, his hand resting on the obsidian diamond. It was no longer just a relic. It was the key to understanding the Order's true purpose. "We're running out of time," Lucien said, his voice taut with urgency. "Every move we make is being tracked. If we don't act now, we're finished." Voss turned to face him. "I know, but the pieces are finally falling into place. This is bigger than just us. We need to expose the Order, or they'll continue to pull the strings from the shadows." They had known that this battle was not just about stopping one man or one organization. The Order was global, its influence widespread, and its power was insidious. But now, Voss had the one thing that could bring it all crashing down: the obsidian diamond, the key to the Order's greatest secret. Section 2. The Puppeteer's Game. Lucien activated the tablet he had been carrying, and images of global influence flooded the screen. Governments, intelligence agencies, corporate giants, all interconnected, all controlled by unseen hands. But at the center of this network was something more troubling. The Order of the Midnight Throne had not only infiltrated these systems, they had built them from the ground up. This isn't just about controlling power. This is about rewriting the future, Lucien said grimly. Graves wasn't the endgame. He was merely a tool, a pawn, to bring us to this point. Voss's gaze hardened. He had thought the battle with Graves had been the final hurdle, but now it seemed like that was just the beginning. So what do we do now? How do we stop this? Lucien paused, his face unreadable. We expose them. We break the system they've built from the inside out. But doing that means going up against the very core of their power. They've already anticipated every move we're about to make. A chilling realization crept over Voss. We're playing their game, aren't we? Lucien nodded slowly. And it's the only game we can play if we want to survive. Section 3. The Iron Hand's Grip. Voss and Lucien's plan was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate the heart of the Order's operation, expose their leadership, and dismantle their control network before they could finish what they had started. But there were no guarantees. The Order had eyes everywhere, and anyone who crossed them was either eliminated or co-opted. "We'll need to act quickly," Lucien said as they strategized. The Iron Hand's grip is already tightening around key political and military figures. Their influence over the economy, the media, even the global infrastructure, it's growing by the hour. Voss clenched his fists, the anger building inside him. We've been fighting shadows for so long, and now we're up against something bigger than anything we could have imagined. Lucien placed the tablet on the table and leaned in closer. But we have something they don't, the truth. If we can uncover the identity of the inner circle, expose their operations, we can shatter their grip on the world. The next step was clear. They would need to track down the leaders of the Order, the ones behind the manipulation, the ones who had orchestrated the destruction of the Onyx Circle and the rise of the Iron Hand, the people who had never been seen, never been named, and most importantly, they had to destroy the source of their power, the Obsidian Diamond. Section 4. The Last Stand. The path to uncovering the Order's leadership was filled with obstacles. Voss and Lucien spent weeks gathering intel, going through old records, tapping into the network of underground informants who were either too scared or too naive to understand the power they were dealing with. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous the situation became. They knew they were being watched, their every move carefully calculated by unseen eyes. It was only a matter of time before the order made its next move. But they had to act before that happened, and through a combination of hacking, infiltration, and the information gathered from previous battles, they finally pinpointed the location of the Order's central meeting. It was in an undisclosed, heavily guarded compound in the heart of the Swiss Alps, a place where power and secrecy converged. "Ready?" Lucien asked, his voice low but determined. Voss nodded, his hand resting on the obsidian diamond. "Let's end this." Chapter 18. The Fall of the Midnight Throne. Section 1. The siege. Voss and Lucien approached the compound under the cover of darkness. The Swiss Alps were unforgiving. The snow, thick and cold. The compound, a sprawling fortress surrounded by high-tech security and hidden traps, loomed ahead. Inside, the leaders of the Order were meeting, planning their final move to consolidate their global power. They had one chance to infiltrate it. With expert precision, they breached the compound's outer defenses, using a combination of stealth and advanced technology to disable the security systems. As they moved deeper into the compound, the weight of the situation became clear. This wasn't just a mission. This was the final battle. Voss had come full circle. He had been a part of this world of secrets, of shadow wars. But now, he was determined to end it once and for all. They reached the inner sanctum, where the Order's leaders were gathered, and Voss felt a familiar coldness wash over him. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was resolve. Section 2. The truth revealed. Inside the chamber, the leaders of the Order were waiting. They had known they were coming. In a sense, they had been preparing for this moment for years, but what they didn't expect was the one person standing before them, Voss. "You've played your game long enough," Voss said, his voice steady but full of fire. "This ends today." The leader of the Order, a man known only as the Sovereign, stood up. His face was obscured by a dark hood, his identity concealed. "You're too late, Voss. The world is already ours. The obsidian diamond was just a tool. The real power lies in control, in information, and we have it all." Voss stepped forward, the diamond in his hand. "Control. You don't control anything. You've only manipulated and destroyed. The diamond was a key, yes, but you underestimated its true power. It's never been about control. It's about freedom. And that's something you'll never understand." With a swift motion, Voss smashed the diamond onto the floor. As the stone shattered, a wave of energy pulsed through the room, shaking the foundations of the Order's operation. The walls trembled. The system they had built began to collapse. Section 3. The Final Victory. The compound began to crumble, the fortress shaking under the weight of the destruction they had caused. The leaders of the Order fell one by one, their power shattered by the very thing they had sought to control. In the end, it was over. The Order had been exposed, their plans destroyed. The obsidian diamond's power had been unleashed, and with it, the illusion of control was gone. The world was free. Voss and Lucien stood amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily but alive. They had done it. The world would never be the same. But for the first time, it felt like it was their world to shape. Chapter 19. The Aftermath of Power, Section 1. The Quiet Storm. The ruins of the Order of the Midnight Throne were still smoldering. Voss and Lucien had barely escaped with their lives. The fortress that had once been the heart of an empire, built on secrecy and control, was now a crumbling monument to its failure. But as the dust settled, Voss knew that the fight wasn't truly over. He stood in the middle of the debris, the wreckage of the order around him. Despite the victory, something gnawed at him. The world was not yet free. The power structures they had toppled might have been destroyed, but the world itself had not changed. There were still those who sought power, and as long as there were people who believed they could control the world, the cycle would repeat. Lucien approached, his face shadowed with concern. "We did what we had to do. The world will see the truth now. The order is gone." Voss turned to him, his expression unreadable. "Maybe, but you and I both know that this won't be the end of it. There will always be someone waiting in the shadows, ready to step into the power vacuum." Lucien nodded solemnly. "You're right, but that's a battle for another day. For now, we've broken the chains that held the world in place." Voss sighed and looked out at the horizon. "But they're still there. The chains are still there. And there's always someone pulling them." Section 2. The Legacy of the Diamond. In the months following the collapse of the order, the world began to rebuild. The truth about the obsidian diamond and the underground network that had controlled so much of global power was exposed. Governments scrambled to regain control. Corporations restructured, and a sense of chaos spread through the power structures that had once been so stable. But even as the world tried to return to a new normal, Voss knew the true cost of their actions. The obsidian diamond was gone, destroyed in the final act of defiance. Yet its legacy lingered. The diamond had been the key to a power that no one should ever wield. But it wasn't just about the stone. It was the hunger for control, the drive to manipulate and dominate others. That truly made the difference. Voss often found himself haunted by the aftermath. The echoes of the battle ringing in his mind, the loss of allies, the betrayal of Helena, the destruction of a world that had been carefully built over centuries. It was all too much to bear. And yet, the truth remained power, in its rawest form, would always attract those who sought it. The idea that they had truly won, that they had ended the cycle of control, seemed naive to Voss. Power never truly disappeared. It simply transformed, taking on new shapes and new faces. Section 3. A New Order. As the weeks passed, Voss kept a low profile, distancing himself from the chaos. The media hailed the fall of the Order of the Midnight Throne as a victory for humanity, and many believed the worst was over. But Voss knew better. One afternoon, he received an encrypted message from an unknown source. It was a set of coordinates, and the message was simple. The next step is waiting. The message chilled him. It wasn't from the Order, or from any of the familiar faces he had fought. It was from someone else, someone new. Voss's first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity, and the nagging sense that the world was not yet free, drove him to investigate. Chapter 20. The new player section 1. The shadow within. The coordinates led him to a secluded location in the mountains of Switzerland, an abandoned facility once used for secret research and military operations. The area was well hidden, isolated from the rest of the world. As Voss entered the facility, he felt the same cold, oppressive atmosphere he had felt in the old temples and underground lairs. It was a place of power, but power that had been left behind, discarded. Inside, the dim lights flickered, and the sound of his footsteps echoed off the walls. He was met by a figure cloaked in shadow, a face obscured by a dark hood. This time, however, Voss wasn't surprised. "I was wondering when you'd show up," the figure said, their voice low and steady. "Who are you?" Voss demanded, his instincts on high alert. He had been through too much to trust anyone easily, especially not someone who was hiding their identity in the same way the Order had. The figure stepped forward into the light, revealing themselves. It was a woman, tall and regal, with sharp features and an intensity in her gaze. "My name is Serafina, and I have been waiting for you." Voss's mind raced. "Waiting for me, why?" Serafina smiled faintly, almost knowingly. "You've caused quite the disruption, Voss. The collapse of the Order, the destruction of the diamond. But those were only the beginning. You've broken the system, but there's a new one coming. One that will be even more powerful. And you, whether you like it or not, will play a part in it." Voss's heart pounded. "What are you talking about? I've already ended the game. There's nothing left." Serafina's eyes glimmered. "No. You've only cleared the board. The pieces are still in play. The obsidian diamond may be gone, but there are other forces older and deeper than anything you've encountered. I've been tracking your every move. Voss, you can't escape your destiny." Section 2. The Hidden Agenda. Serafina led Voss deeper into the facility, revealing a room filled with high-tech equipment and glowing screens. The walls were lined with monitors displaying global data, surveillance footage, and encrypted communications. "You've only seen a fraction of the truth," she said, pulling up a map of the world. "The power structures you destroyed were just part of a much larger operation. We've been monitoring the movements of key players across the globe, and I'm not talking about politicians or businessmen. I'm talking about those who truly control the world, hidden in the shadows." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. The diamond was never just about power. It was about control. The Order sought to use it as a means to gain control over everything. But that wasn't the only plan. There are others. Voss, powerful organizations, each with its own agenda. But they share one thing in common. They're all vying for control of the next step in human evolution. Voss's mind spun. "Next step? What are you talking about?" Serafina turned to face him, her expression serious. "Technology, genetic modification, a new world order. The obsidian diamond was only the first piece. The next phase involves creating a superhuman race, those who will rule the world with absolute power, and the rest of humanity will be nothing more than pawns." Section 3. The fight reignites. Voss stood frozen, the realization dawning on him. The war he had thought was over was only just beginning. The world was in the hands of those who believed they could control it, and they were moving forward, regardless of the cost. "You can't stop them," Serafina said, her voice like ice. "This is the future, Voss. You can join us, or you can continue to fight a battle that was lost the moment you destroyed the diamond." Voss knew there was no turning back now. The stakes had never been higher. The next phase of the war was more dangerous than anything he had faced before. And this time, it wasn't about a diamond. It was about the future of humanity itself. "No one controls me," Voss said, his voice steady. Serafina's smile was cold. "We'll see, won't we?" Chapter 21. The New Threat, Section 1. The Gathering Storm. The quiet after the battle had been deceiving. The world, still in the wake of the collapse of the Onyx Circle and the destruction of the Obsidian Diamond, thought the struggle for control had come to an end. But for Voss, there was no peace. The shadows he had fought to eliminate were regrouping, reshaping themselves in ways he hadn't imagined. Serafina's warning echoed in his mind. The battle for power was far from over. It had simply shifted to a new battleground, one where human evolution, technology, and the future of civilization itself were at stake. Voss sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by maps, intel, and notes that seemed to lead in circles. Every thread he pulled unraveled only to reveal another, deeper conspiracy. The new players were not just ordinary criminals or power-hungry leaders. They were scientists, technocrats, and global elites, people with access to the most cutting-edge advancements in genetics, AI, and bioengineering. The Order of the Midnight Throne had been the first step, but this was something much more dangerous. These people were already working on a new breed of humanity, one that could transcend the weaknesses of the old world, a superior race that could control the world with the power of knowledge, technology, and enhanced abilities. As Fuss sifted through the files, one name stood out among the rest: Dr. Elias King, the leader of the new movement, the one who had spearheaded the research into genetic modification and cybernetic enhancements. According to the documents, Dr. King had connections in the highest echelons of power, from global governments to military-industrial complexes. He had been working in secret for years, building a global network to bring his vision to life. Voss knew he had to act quickly. The next step in the war wasn't going to wait for him. Section 2. The Call to Action. Lucien arrived at Voss's apartment the following morning, his face grim. He had been working behind the scenes, tracking the movements of the new players, but he had been unable to find any solid leads. The more they searched, the more they realized how deep the conspiracy ran. And now, with Serafina's words lingering in their minds, it was clear that they were up against an enemy unlike any they had faced before. "We're getting nowhere, Voss," Lucien said, pacing the room. "We've been looking for a connection to Dr. King's network for days, but it's like he's erased every trace of himself. There's no paper trail, no digital footprint." Voss rubbed his eyes, his exhaustion evident. "The fact that they've managed to stay so hidden is exactly why we need to act fast. This isn't just about power anymore. It's about creating a new world order, one where they decide who gets to survive and who gets to rule." Lucien stopped pacing, turning to face Voss. So, what's our next move? Voss glanced at the map on the wall. We find Dr. King, we infiltrate his network, and we stop him before he's able to finish what he started. But Voss knew this wouldn't be easy. Dr. King wasn't just a scientist or a criminal mastermind. He was an architect of the future, a future that only a selective few would have the privilege to control. Section 3. Unmasking the Architect. Over the next few days, Voss and Lucien followed leads that took them to various high-tech labs, research facilities, and corporate offices around the world. They dug deeper into Dr. King's past, uncovering traces of his work dating back to his early days as a medical researcher. It became clear that Dr. King was not just a scientist. He was a visionary, someone who believed humanity needed to evolve to survive the challenges of the future. But his vision was one of control. Dr. King sought to create a race of humans who were stronger, smarter, and more resilient than the current population. His experiments in genetic engineering were the first steps toward a new world where only the enhanced would hold power. Voss and Lucien finally traced Dr. King to a secluded facility located deep in the mountains of northern Canada, a place where the government had no jurisdiction, and the lab had been concealed under layers of security. It was here that Dr. King was working on his most ambitious project, yet a bioengineered human capable of merging with advanced AI to become the perfect ruler. "We found him," Voss said, determination in his voice. "This ends now." But Lucien wasn't so sure. "You know we can't just waltz in there and stop him. This is going to be our biggest fight yet." Voss turned to face him, his eyes hard. "I know, but we don't have a choice." Section 4. The Infiltration. The facility was unlike any Voss had encountered before. It was heavily guarded, and the landscape around it was treacherous, covered with snow and ice. The first challenge would be to get inside without triggering any alarms. Voss and Lucien spent days mapping out the compound, gathering intelligence, and waiting for the right moment. They used a combination of stealth tactics and high-tech gadgets to disable the security systems at the perimeter. As they moved closer to the main building, the tension between them grew. They knew that they were walking into the lion's den, and this time, there would be no easy way out. As they entered the facility, the sense of foreboding grew. The walls were sterile and cold, the air thick with the smell of technology and chemicals. They navigated through dark hallways, avoiding cameras and armed guards, moving closer to the heart of Dr. King's operation. But the deeper they went, the more they realized the scale of what they were up against. Dr. King wasn't just building a new race of humans. He was creating a new order, one where the enhanced would reign supreme. And in that order, there would be no place for those who couldn't adapt. Section 5. The Confrontation. They finally reached the central lab, where Dr. King was conducting his experiments. The room was filled with advanced technology computers, monitors, and genetic labs where human DNA was being altered, modified, and enhanced. And there, in the center of the room, stood Dr. King himself. He was tall, with sharp features and a calculating gaze. He looked up as Voss and Lucian entered, a faint smile playing on his lips. "So, you've come," Dr. King said, his voice calm and confident. "I knew it was only a matter of time before you showed up. The question is, will you be the ones to stop me, or will you be the ones who help bring this new world into existence?" Voss's hand clenched around the weapon at his side. "This isn't your world to create. King, it's over." Dr. King laughed softly, shaking his head. "You still don't understand. Do you? The old world is broken. The system is flawed. Only the strong will survive the challenges ahead. And I will ensure that those who are worthy will rule." Voss stepped forward, his gaze hard. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Section 6. The final battle. The confrontation that followed was intense. Dr. King, aided by his advanced technology and enhanced security systems, fought back fiercely. His creation's genetically enhanced humans were stronger, faster, and more resilient than ordinary people. But Voss and Lucian weren't ordinary. They had been through battles before, and they had learned to adapt. As they fought their way through the lab, Voss knew that there was only one way to stop Dr. King. They had to destroy the heart of his operation, the central control system that governed his enhancements, his experiments, and his entire vision of the future. With one final push, they reached the core of the lab. Lucien worked quickly, using the hacking device they had brought to break into the mainframe. Voss stood guard, knowing that Dr. King would stop at nothing to prevent them from succeeding. Dr. King appeared in the doorway, his eyes burning with fury. "You can't destroy what you don't understand," he said, his voice a low growl. "The future is already here. It's too late for you." But it was not too late. With a final, desperate effort, Voss and Lucien managed to bring down the core system, sending the lab into chaos. The enhanced humans and the technology controlling them began to collapse. And Dr. King's empire of control came crashing down. Epilogue. The long road ahead. The destruction of Dr. King's facility marked the end of one chapter. But Voss knew that the struggle for control was far from over. The battle for humanity's future had only just begun. There were still forces at work, still groups seeking to reshape the world in their image. As he stood on the edge of the facility, looking out over the snowy landscape, Voss realized that the fight wasn't just about power or control. It was about freedom, the freedom to shape the future on humanity's own terms. And he would be ready to fight for that freedom, no matter the cost.